The abandoned house had stood at the edge of town for as long as I could remember, a decaying relic of a bygone era. The townsfolk spoke of it in hushed tones, tales of eerie happenings and ghostly apparitions that had driven most away. But curiosity had always been my downfall, and on that fateful night, I found myself standing before its imposing, weathered facade. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie, pale glow over the house. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay as I approached. Every step I took on the creaking wooden porch sent shivers down my spine, as if the very house itself were protesting my intrusion. I had heard the stories, of course, how the house had once belonged to the reclusive Blakely family, who had mysteriously disappeared without a trace one stormy night. It was said that their anguished souls still roamed the abandoned halls, seeking something they had lost. As I pushed open the heavy, wrought iron front door, a gust of cold wind swept through the entrance hall, carrying with it the eerie echoes of distant whispers. The flashlight in my trembling hand flickered to life, casting stark, uneven shadows on the faded wallpaper. The house was a labyrinth of winding corridors and forgotten rooms. The once grand chandeliers had fallen, their crystal prisms shattered on the floor, while ornate mirrors were coated with dust and grime. It was a place that time had forgotten, and the only company I had were the rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. I ventured deeper into the darkness, my flashlight's beam cutting through the silence like a knife. The air grew colder with each step, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following my every move. I entered a room that sent a shiver down my spine, a parlor filled with antique furniture draped in white sheets. In the center of the room, a grand piano stood covered in a velvet cloth, a ghostly reminder of the music that had once filled these halls. As I approached the piano, the room seemed to come alive with whispers, soft, unintelligible voices that danced on the edges of my consciousness. I brushed aside the velvet cloth and pressed a key, producing a discordant, haunting note that hung in the air like a lament. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and I could feel a presence in the room with me. I turned to see a figure standing in the corner, an ethereal woman, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. She wore a tattered, white gown that seemed to float around her like mist. "Who are you?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. She raised a trembling finger and pointed to the piano. "Play." I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding, but something about her gaze compelled me to comply. I touched the keys again, and this time, the melody that emerged was hauntingly beautiful, a mournful dirge that seemed to echo through the ages. As the final notes faded, the woman's form wavered, and I could hear her voice, faint and distant. "Thank you," she whispered, her words carrying a sense of release. And then, as if carried away by the very notes of the piano, she vanished, leaving me alone in the dimly lit parlor. I knew I should leave, that I had witnessed something beyond my understanding, but a strange compulsion urged me to stay. The night had grown colder, and the house seemed to come alive with eerie sounds, the soft patter of footsteps, the distant murmur of voices. I ventured deeper into the labyrinth of the house, my flashlight's beam trembling as my hands shook. I entered a room that was unlike any other I had seen, an ornate chamber with a long, rectangular table covered in dust and cobwebs. At the head of the table sat a figure, draped in shadow. I couldn't make out their features, but I could feel their gaze on me, a heavy, suffocating weight. The room seemed to grow colder, and the whispers that had been a distant hum now surrounded me, filling the air with a cacophony of voices. The figure at the table spoke, their voice a chilling, disjointed chorus of whispers. "Join us." I tried to speak, to refuse, but my voice caught in my throat. I felt as if I were being pulled towards the table, my steps slow and deliberate. The whispers grew louder, their words unintelligible but filled with an unrelenting malevolence. And then, with a sudden, violent force, I broke free from the invisible grasp that held me. I stumbled back, my heart pounding, and fled from the room, the echoes of those haunting whispers following me down the corridor. As I burst through the front door, the night air was a welcome relief. I couldn't explain what I had seen or heard, but I knew one thing for certain: I had glimpsed the darkness that dwelled within the abandoned house, and I would never forget the chilling horrors that lurked in its forsaken halls.